Now that we've made changes to the constructors, let's go ahead and see how they work if we test them. And let's go ahead and do this. Let's do this with our array. So if we run this, we have an array, and it's going to call 4 of them with the non-default constructor and 8 of them with the default constructor. And if we look at the 4 that are non-default, it's given in the size we specified and then the values. And all of those values are within, they're all valid values, so that looks really good. And then let's look at the next one. Now, the default one, all the sides are 6, but the values are all 6. And we were thinking that since we were calling roll, they would be random, and so it would be different ones. Let's run them again and see if we're getting that consistently. Okay, now there we have 3. That's a different random number, but they're all the same. So what's causing this to happen? So the number's changing, but once it changes, they're all exactly the same. Notice that we're calling srand after we call rand, right? Because we're calling rand in the roll, both here and in the set numbers. So let's go ahead and move these. So we call srand, which will be seeding that random number generator before. And then we'll just make sure we seed it first, then we'll call roll, which calls rand. We seed it first, and then we call set number of sides, which calls rand. Let's see what happens. Okay, that still didn't solve our problem. They're still saying all the same. So what's happening here is that it's each time that, so it's creating a new object here. When it creates a new object, it calls the constructor, which seeds the random time with that number of seconds. And then it calls roll to get the random number. Then it comes to the next one. It creates a new dice, calls srand to set that seed based on that number of seconds from time, and then it calls roll. What's happening is that it's calling these often enough. It's calling all of these within the same second. So it's calling srand with that second, rolling, coming up with 6. The next one that's constructed is still within the same second. So it's being seeded with the same value. And so it's producing exactly the same random number. So our decision to put srand in the constructors is now not working. So it's not producing that randomness when we're creating a series of dice all at the same time. And this happens when we create an array, right? So it's a common occurrence. If we're going to have an array of dice, this is going to be a possibility. So now remember that we had pros and cons where we wanted to do the srand. And now we've come up with a significant con for putting it actually in the class itself. So let's go ahead and move it out of here and move it back into main, which was one of our other options, right? So let's move it out of here, put it back in main, and just say, okay, you need to initialize it. Now we need to move those header files, or not move them because we still need them for rand, but we need them in here. We'll add the header files for C standard lib and the one for time, which is C time, and then that will work. And so we'll seed it here instead and see what happens. And now, when we construct those objects, we're getting a random number for the values, right? Because now what's happening, it's seeding it once, and then it's calling rand several times. Before it was seeding, calling rand, seeding, calling rand, seeding, calling rand, because it was seeding with the same number. The random number generated the exact same number every time. So now we've solved that problem so that we can have a series of dice created quickly within the same second and still have different values. And so our update to dice is working. We've made it a more robust class. Now those private data members are supervised and made sure that they stay in valid values all the time.